Okay, hi. This is Andy Sports and Songs, page 2, with Jason Inc. here in the tattoo parlor. Gonna do a little talk today. What we're talking about today is we're narrowing it down. Dark Side of the Ring recently did a thing on the Luna Vachon, her life. As you know, here we're a Minnesota-based show, so the Vachon family means a lot to us here with Mad Dog and Butcher, Vivian with wrestling there. So the Vachon family is kind of, I don't say important, but popular name here. Luna never wrestled here locally. But she was part of WWF at the time and Southern Wrestling, some of the independents down there. And spoiler alert, not spoiler alert, if you haven't seen The Dark Side of the Ring yet of this, you might want to watch it so you know what we're talking about. Or you could listen to us talk about it, then watch it again and fill in the rest. It's not really.
I highly suggest that if you haven't seen any of the Dark Side of the Rings, I highly suggest you go back and you watch season 1 through season 3. The last episode is going to air this coming Thursday night.
Yep.
And it is going to be probably the bar burner of all the episodes because they actually talk about the steroid scandal.
Right.
Last night, I don't know if Andy caught it or not. Just going to catch him up to date real quick.
Yep.
We're not going to really get into the Dark Side of the Ring, but we are, but we aren't. But last night, Andy, did you see they had the story of XPW? Rob Black's XPW. Very it reminded me of the UWF story.
Okay,
the way the whole episode ran and the way the promotion was ran. But not gonna spoil nothing.
I got it on my thing to watch.
Yep.
Long story longer, it's on my wife's gonna be gone tomorrow, so it's on my
Yep.
background noises. I do work on the honeydew list. So it's,
It's I'm not gonna spoil. I'm not gonna spoil nothing for nobody. I just, like I said, I highly recommend you go back and watch season 1 through season 3.
They've all
if you've
been
never
good.
seen it.
They've all been good.
Fantastic.
So, focusing on the Luna Vachon story here, some things about Luna. She fell in love with wrestling as a child. Of course, it was in her family. So, slide over those hands. And so it was in her family, so she kind of fell in love with it. I think, and we talked about this, I think a lot of it was she was there, she saw it, she loved it, that's what she wanted to do. The Vachons at the time in Canada, eat, sleep, drink, crap, wrestling. That's what they did.
Yep.
So I don't think she ever knew or learned how to turn it off. She could, but she knew that when you were in public, you had to be character. Ric Flair said years ago, he goes, an actor is only an actor on a TV show.
Yep.
He goes, I always have to be Ric Flair in public. And I think Luna was under that impression too. Dark Side of the Ring, her son talks about times where she came to school with a snake. But he always kept saying, that was just mom.
Well, and the thing is like I'm not gonna cut you off there, but I do want to add to it and say, one thing that a lot of people don't understand, and I'm talking about today's generation.
Yep.
Me and you, we know about this because we've followed wrestling pretty much all of our life.
Right.
People like Luna Vachon and people like Jake the Snake and people like Rockin' Robin and Sam Houston and even like Dustin Reynolds.
Yep.
You got to realize these guys and girls, they go on a road with their moms and dads. They see the inside of the business before they even see the inside of the business.
Right.
They're doing odd jobs like driving the guys and girls back and forth at shows or running across the street to the local 7-Eleven. Oh, here, go give me a Slurpee.
Selling merch upstairs.
Maybe sitting there. Maybe one of the guys is hurting and can't bend over and lace my boots up, kid. Here. It's called paying your dues, and a lot of the people that I just named, to them it is real.
Right.
Because their fathers like Grizzly Smith, Dusty Rhodes,
Yep.
The Vachons, to them that was their life. That is what and if they heard you, hey kid, you don't disrespect, you don't put the business down. It's real. I'm gonna show you,
Right.
And they would take you out in the backyard and here, let me chop you 30 times. Let me show you how.
Yep.
And welcome to the business.
Yep. And I think that was Luna's issue. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't a split personality, or they said she had some other disorders like that. Not saying that wasn't part of her life, but like you and I talked about. In fact, you said something the other day. After you said it, I said, "Stop. That's our next podcast." You said she was Pillman before Pillman.
Yeah.
And I said, "Stop right there." Now, for those of you who don't know, Brian Pillman pulled off the lunatic character. He was this crazy guy. He was a lunatic all the time. He'd go to Comic-Con type things or conventions and just be a nut job. Another guy's like, is he really off his rocker? Or is he just saying a character to sell character to make more money? As we all found out later, he was just pulling everybody's leg to make more money.
Yep.
So, with that being said, with, like we said before, the Vachon saying, this is wrestling, this is what you do. So she was in character all the time out in public, like you have to be back then, before internet ruined it and people could find out stuff. Why she always that? Because in that whole dark side of the ring, every time something happened, her son would always go, well, that was just mom being mom.
But here's the other thing too: is like, okay, like Luna, wrestling's been in Luna's life all her life. I mean, that's like no way around. It's just like the Hearts or anything else. But here's another thing. Like, if you listen to Dark Side of the Ring, Luna, and I don't know like how much at the time was put into this and how much wasn't, but the way it sounded, she almost kind of like accidentally fell into the role because of the fact of what she was doing at the time, as far as she was just there and they needed an extra.
Right.
And she kind of just fell into the spot. And then when Sullivan saw the potential that she had, he's kind of like, I want her.
Yeah,
you're with me.
You look at her beforehand when she was Trudy. Gertrude was her real name.
Right.
Trudy, this reporter. Then you look at the path. Kevin Sullivan, great wrestling mind, which people don't know because you always see this guy who looks like he's a few sandwiches short of a picnic out there all the time. But he was really a great mind. That was his character. So she hung around this guy who's a little short off hand. Then she gets trained by fabulous Moolah. Another story for another day, but there's stories about what Moolah's done with the girls through training. So now she's had to go through all that, living hell compared to some people. So she's learned this. Now, all the people on Dark Side of the Ring to talk to, Deborah Medusa Michelli.
Medusa, yeah.
I believe her because Medusa wouldn't do the business wrong. So she's going to talk, she's going to be a straight shooter. And the other gals I talked to, I wasn't that familiar with them. Not saying they're going to pull snow over your eyes, because the guys on Dark Side of the Ring do a great job. They're not going to get someone out there that's going to give you a bunch of BS. So Medusa's stories I bought because I trust her. There are two characters I wasn't familiar with, but I believe them.
I saw two of the two that you were talking about, and their names didn't strike.
Yeah, but those guys who Dark Side of the Ring said this is our third year. They're not going to grab someone who goes, I know Luna Vachon. Oh, sure, talk to us. They're going to get credible people. All their stories kind of jived. The one thing where it got to me where I said, Luna's a character, it wouldn't break. They go, oh, but she always knew what she was doing that 15 minutes in the ring. If you're that bad mentally what they said she was, there's no way you could hold it together for 15 minutes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a valid point.
And the one thing Medusa said is, because Medusa wanted to drop the belt to her. She goes, I'll do the job. I'll drop the belt to you. Luna didn't want it that way, though.
Nope. Luna,
she wanted the higher ups to say, Luna, you be the champ for a while. Medusa's like, I'm leaving. I'm gone.
She wanted people to see that she was paying her dues. She wanted people to see that she wasn't going to be a 5-second champion because they wanted to put her over. She wanted, she wanted it, but she wanted to earn it. She didn't want to be looked at as like a
transitional champion.
Yeah, she didn't want to be one of the pretty girls. She was one of the very few. If she was probably one of the only ones besides Jacqueline that probably at the time were probably wrestling men.
Yeah, and Sensational Sherry didn't, but her as a manager outside, she took bumps from the boys on the apron.
But she may not have wrestled the men, but
she took bumps from them.
But Sherry Martel wasn't no pushover either.
Oh yeah,
she was no.
She scared me, boy. I'm sorry. I'll tell you right now.
She was no.
Yeah,
she was no pushover.
But because you look at it, and Luna was there. Medusa, and I'm not blaming Luna for this. If Luna would have taken the belt, Medusa never throws in the garbage on WCW the next week.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, like...
I'm not blaming Luna for that.
It's kind of like, well, it's kind of like a what if, like, well, if this didn't happen, well, then this wouldn't happen.
Right.
But then again, maybe, if that would have never happened, just like if Hall and Nash would have never walked through the door.
Right.
Nitro may never took off as hot as it did. It would have been hot,
right?
But it wouldn't have took off like it did.
But with Luna, like I said, there was a handful of gals that actually wrestled. There was Luna, Jackie, Medusa, Sherry. Who's the other one we had?
You said you had to throw Rockin' Robin, right. And I said Velvet McIntyre.
But from that era, who's the one? She was I'm blank on her name now. She was the head of the Right to Censor group.
Ivory.
Ivory.
Yeah,
thank you.
Ivory.
So those were the gals who wrestled. They weren't into the bra and panties matches like Vince was trying to push. Okay? So that's why they all left. Ivory stuck around because I think she wanted to hope it was just a phase and then come back to wrestling. She'd be there for it. I think Jackie was in the same boat.
Well, and then you had girls like, we're talking about Sensational Sherry and Rockin' Robin, and we were like saying to you about Velvet McIntyre, and I threw the other four that I threw out to you that I think that I feel like deserve to be in that list of women that were worth watching at the time were the Jumping Bomb Angels and the Glamour Girls, which the Glamour Girls went on to go to like Glow or whatever, and then I'm sure the Jumping Bomb Angels probably went back to Japan or whatever it is they did, but like we talked about, there wasn't a very big roster, so there was, so even if they wanted to do something with her, it was like, well, who do you pair against this chick?
Right. Yeah. And
who do you pair against her? She was a she was a trailblazer.
And that's why like Sherry became a manager, Jackie became a manager. They put all these gals as managers because Vince didn't know what to do with them. He went with the bra and panties route with all of them. Trish Stratus, Lita, yes, they were good wrestlers, but they had to do that, I think, just because they knew it was going to come back around.
Trish, I think, kind of...
She was a model who felt...
I don't really know what her background... I know she was a model. I don't really know the
She was in the fitness a lot.
Yeah, and I think she kind of fell into that spot.
But she fell in love with wrestling, though. Yeah. So she fell in love with the wrestling part more than the bra and panty match.
Lita, on the other hand, many people don't know that, she got her break in ECW while it was still the original ECW.
Yep.
Managing Danny Doreen and guys like that. But again,
and that Lita that you see on TV, that's her. The rock chick tattoos, hard rock. That was her. It wasn't just a.
But
I have a few tattoos and long hair. Let's make me a rock girl. No, that wasn't her. That was her.
No, that was actually her perfect. And you sit there and you talk about. Let's get back to Luna. Again, I think Luna, she fell as much as her family, as much as her blood was in the wrestling business, I think she kind of accidentally kind of fell into that spot. I think it was just kind of, again, I think the way I read it is, the way I viewed it was, she was an extra. They needed somebody there to do the spot. She was there. And it just kind of again, Solomon was like, I want her.
Well, it started with Vivian said, can you watch her take you with you on the road?
Yeah.
And she was in the front row, saw it, and that's when she fell in love with it. It wasn't the whole, you're a Vachon, damn it, you're going to be in wrestling. That wasn't it.
No, and that's what I'm saying. That's why I say, she kind of accidentally fell into the role while kind of being in the role because her family was her family was already into the business. So even while her her bloodline was into the business, she kind of fell into that role where her father and uncles and aunts and mom and they were already there. They were in the AWA.
She was a Vachon through adoption, not blood, if I recall from the beginning of the story. Did Paul adopt her?
Yeah.
So she wasn't a Vachon blood, but she damn near was because she was raised by him.
Right, they adopted her.
Yeah.
And which Vachon was that was on there?
That was Paul.
That was
Butcher.
Paul Vachon. Okay, because Mad Dog Vachon's dead.
He's passed away.
Right, okay. All right.
The dog is no longer with
Right. Okay.
And he was, the dog, I remember watching him as a kid growing up too, boy. He scared the life out of me. He just looked at you, okay. But so that's what I'm saying. Watch a story about Luna. Great gal, and I always said this when she was in her crazy half mohawk hair and everything else. And they looked at the picture beforehand. She was a pretty gal.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't this. I'm ugly. I'm shaving my head and this and that. Because I saw some pictures of her later on. I saw Facebook today. Her later on at some signings and stuff like that, where her hair's all growing back in and stuff. I don't know if those were actual tattoos on her skull or if they were inked in. I'm not sure.
I think they were just
drawn on because they were always kind of different.
Yeah.
Because at first you're like, holy Christ, this woman's got tattoos on her skull.
Yeah.
So she's really sold herself into this character. Then you'd see later on they weren't. Okay, that's good.
I think the only tattoo that was actually real, that was actually legit, was the one she had the rose on her chest.
Yes.
And I think that was probably the only one out of all of them. I think the rest of them, like you said, they were. But yeah, she was. I mean, and I think that's why, like, I mean, you go on and you watch the episode and you see, like, they later on they talk about Sunny and Sable and they talk about how like Luna did, and I think that again with Luna, I think it was she had to earn her keep in the business, and she saw women like Sunny and Sable and whoever coming through the door, and especially like with Sable, they were giving her the spotlight. They were opening her up, right? Like, here, well, we want you. Well, why? What has she done for the business?
Right. And that's where Luna took it personally and took it hard. I wish she was still here today, just to kind of see how, so she could see how women's wrestling came back to women's wrestling again. It's not so much bras and panties like it was back in the day.
I sit there and I wonder about that sometimes. You sit back and you think, like, okay, like, you watch, like, like we all watched, Luna Vachon and, Sensational Sherry and Medusa Michelli and, Fabulous Moolah and Wendy Richter. Yep. Okay, like, that's a great point. Like, what would these women think of today's wrestling? Because of the fact there would be a mixed review, because of the fact you would have, like, Moolah, and like Luna probably be like, well, you can't just be another pretty girl.
Right. Or like you said, Jackie and Luna actually wrestled men.
Right.
Then because the girls couldn't take a real hit,
Right.
Luna's first big breakthrough was the ECW cage match with Steve Richards.
Yeah.
Awesome match if you find that online. That was just cool.
Yeah, she was all,
Now, granted, they have intergender matches today, but that's so different. I saw the one on Impact yesterday with Chelsea Green against that big, huge guy.
Okay.
It's like, really? Chelsea Green's about as big as my pinky, No, those are bore me.
I just
when
think
it was Jackie against the guy or Luna against the guy, that this was going to be a decent match. Because they're going to take bumps.
Yeah, but that was because, like, when you saw, like, you used to see, like, when Jacqueline used to wrestle down in Texas, she was Miss Texas.
Yes.
And she would wrestle Jerry Lawler or whoever she was beefing with at the time. But you knew when they got in there, you knew it was going to be legit. It wasn't going to be any of this hokey-ass bullshit. And nothing against, like, Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks.
Yep.
Nothing against these girls, okay? But, like, if I had to pick out of today's generation, if I had to pick women that I think that would have at least lasted and bared through what women's wrestling was then, I would take people like Natalya.
Yeah.
Tamina Snuka.
Yeah. But then you got to look at the lineage you're coming from, though.
Possibly Charlotte Flair.
Right.
Maybe Paul Ellering's daughter.
Rachel?
Tessa,
Rachel, Tessa Blanchard.
Maybe Tessa Blanchard.
These are all second generation ones we're talking about.
But I would say like Natalya, maybe like Natalya, Charlotte, and Tamina would be my three top ones that I would say, okay, you know what? You can take these three and you can put them back in the 80s division.
Yeah.
Because they knew what work ethic was.
Or you know who else? One who's just recently retired, who we forgot for our first group because she was kind of past the Luna group,
right?
Was Jazz. She was kind of that in between.
Yeah.
She was a little bit towards the tail end of them. So I think she was kind of the one that kind of carried the torch forward.
Yeah, she was another one.
This is how women wrestle. We don't sit there in our bras and panties and bounce around, girls, and worry about our nails and our hair. we get dirty, we get cut, we get bruised, and we break bones.
And maybe one other one that I could say maybe would possibly pull it, because I could kind of see her within that group of women, like Sensational Sherry,
Yep.
and Paige.
Oh yeah,
Because of the fact, again, it's in her blood.
Yep.
She's got that European background, and
Yep.
as we all know, the Europe stick wrestling,
Yeah.
like
yeah, it's a religion.
they're right. It's like going to church,
Right.
But no, I mean, you do think about that, like, well, damn, what would Sherry Martel if she was here today and she was mentoring one of the girls?
If she was watching AEW right now, what would she say? Or would she be working there behind the scenes? Anyway, what would she say about today's wrestling? What would some of these other gals say?
One person I could definitely see her working with, as far as hands-on, if she was still alive and she was, like, say, under a Legends contract, I could see her working with a Charlotte Flair.
Yeah.
Because Charlotte is kind of like, if you think about it, I don't look at her as, like, I don't just look at her as, like, Ric Flair's daughter. Like, she reminds me of Sherry Martel in the way she carries herself.
Right.
The robes that she wears.
Yes.
Like, even though the robes are dedicated to her father.
Right. But Sherry...
The style that Sherry wears.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think the thing that helps a lot of it, you forget the name, but when you look at Charlotte Flair, and you look at Tessa Blanchard, and this is a good thing, Charlotte looks nothing like Rick.
No.
She's taller, a little skinnier because she was doing gymnastics, so her build is different.
Right.
She's not a stocky little girl. Rachel Ellering. I love Rachel Ellering. I love what she does in the ring. But she's kind of built like the old man a little bit.
Where is she at right now?
She was at TNA. Her and Jordan Grace were tag champs.
I was going to say, wasn't she ever an Impact or something?
Impact.
For a while?
TNA, yeah. But she's
a
short, stocky gal. Not beefy, stocky like Jordan Grace, but she could tell she's an Ellering.
Right.
A lot of the others don't look like the old man.
No.
Tessa doesn't look like Tully or Tully's dad, I don't think.
Slightly.
I mean, you can tell they're related, but you can't tell they're father daughter.
Yeah, slightly you can tell that they're related, but yeah, I don't feel that she is.
And Tessa's been blessed where between Tully and Magnum being influences growing up,
right?
She's had more than one person to bounce ideas off of or get suggestions from on the business.
Right.
Tully can give you both sides of the business because he was the drug, sex, and rock and roll guy,
right?
And now he's turned his life around, so he's seen it back with different eyes. Like, oh God, what did I do wrong?
Right.
So he sees it that way. Magnum's had the golden ticket was about to be handed to him a week later, and it was snatched away from a boat accident.
Yep.
Or motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
Beefcake was the boat accident.
But yeah, I mean,
so they both had been right there, and I'd love to see what Luna would say about girls, these second generation girls.
I think personally, my opinion is that if people like Luna, and there's somebody else I'm gonna throw out there in the women's division that a lot of people forget about because of the fact you didn't see her a whole lot until like later. I mean, she did stuff in wrestling, but you didn't really see her on camera until like she was older. But you gotta throw Mae Young in there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But like,
if you know the history to go back, she was the bit back in the day.
I mean, like, but I what I was getting ready to say was, as far as in reference to Luna, I think if women like Luna and Sherry and like the other ones that we mentioned, I think the women's division in WWE would be looked at a lot differently and taken a lot more serious than it is. And the reason I say that is because it kind of it hasn't fallen off, but I wouldn't say that their division is great.
No, I look at it now. I like Becky Lynch.
I mean, there's a couple people that are down there that, like there's a couple, like I'm going to tell you, like, I didn't think I was going to like this when I first saw it, but now that I don't watch NXT, but occasionally I will turn it on just to kind of see what who they're bringing in new. And I like what they're doing with Mandy Rose.
Yes.
I like the new look. I like the new look. I like the group.
So I like Mandy Rose new. I like Sasha Banks. I'm okay with her. I'm okay with Becky Lynch.
See, Sasha to me, like, and I hate to be, I don't want to be prejudiced, and I don't want to be like, I don't want to sound bitter, but I feel like the only reason Sasha Banks has gotten over, okay,
Is her uncle?
it's because of the fact that Snoop Dogg is her uncle. Like, okay,
and he's worked with WWE in the past. He was
he's
name dropped.
I mean, don't get me wrong. She did some stuff down in NXT that was really nice. You know, like her and Bayley had a great thing going on with them two teaming. You know, but I don't really feel like she's really put the work ethic in.
No, but I mean, I like her as a wrestler. I mean, she's a wrestler, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
I like her. There's a couple of gals now in WWE I just can't stand.
Such as, like, just throw them out there.
I cannot stand Bianca Belair. I can't stand her. I think it's the hair, though.
Yeah.
The way too long hair has it. I think that's what bothers me. And just because of that, I won't watch her matches because it's like there's no way you could possibly have a real wrestling match with this hair.
Right.
Yeah, impossible. So her I don't like, and there's a few others I don't like. Geez.
I don't like the transition with Becky.
Yeah.
I don't like where they're going with that.
They're trying to make her heel, and the people don't want it.
It's not that, but it's like it's almost they're kind of like doing with her, kind of like what they're doing with Rollins, where kind of like they're changing them, but they're like trying to throw it on you and force it on you the way they did with Roman, and it's like,
yeah,
I don't know, like I don't see where they're going with the whole transition with Becky, and even with Rollins, like for as great as Rollins is, and I know we're getting off the topic because we're talking about Luna, but for as great as he is. Like, again, like, they're destroying them.
Right. And that's what I'm saying.
And I feel like that's what they're kind of even doing with, like, for example, perfect example. Somebody here's another one I think could hang with Luna. Nikki Cross.
Yes. I love Nikki Cross.
I love Nikki. I don't like the superhero shit.
That's the other one. I don't like the superhero Nikki. I liked Nikki Cross beforehand. I liked Sarah Rowe when she was around beforehand.
Right. And,
when you mentioned Mae Young was a good old throwback.
Oh, she was a trailblazer, and she ain't pulling no punches either.
The one thing I thought of when I was watching the Luna Vachon thing, I thought of something. When Mae Young, when Bubba Ray took Mae Young to the table, Luna's going, yeah. Luna was up in heaven looking down, smiling, going, "You go, woman." Well, because Luna would have wanted that spot.
Well, you know that. When they did that spot with Mae Young, when the Dudleys did that spot,
Bully Ray was scared.
Well, yeah, he was. It was funny. Bully Ray was literally scared because he did not want to hurt her.
Right.
And they were in the back going over it, and he kept on saying, he kept on, trying to come up with ideas that, to make sure he protected her neck. When
gonna pull the curtain here a little bit. If you watch that, because Bully Ray said it, watch it. The thing they do is afterwards you get a little tap on the leg. That means I'm good.
Right.
She taps Bully's leg, and he does his best not to smile. She's like, oh, you kind of see the air coming out of him. But you see her give a little tap on the leg, the good. Right. And you can just see, because he was scared. He was holding Grandma's china, Well,
no, yeah, and they were in the back, and he was like I said, he was sitting there thinking about trying to figure out ways to protect her neck, and he kept going to her and saying, "I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this."
She goes, "Put me through the table."
And, no, that wasn't even her words. She sat there. And
we can't say what her words were, but her words.
She basically told him to man up.
Yep.
And basically put her through. And his mouth just dropped the table, and
that would have been Luna's spot. She was around.
Luna. Yeah. Luna
would have loved it at least in ECW. Well, she did do ECW against.
She would have got along with probably all the guys. Bradshaw, Farouk.
Oh yeah.
I mean, she would have.
She would have done Bone Street.
I mean, she was. Yeah. She'd have got along with Taker in a heartbeat.
She would have been almost as good a Magic for Taker than Paul Bearer would have been.
You know who she would have really been good with? And I was thinking about this when we first started the podcast. Nope.
Who?
Better. And she would have been perfect in the role because it was back in the 90s. Sorry. Jake the Snake. When he was feuding with Randy Savage, she'd have been perfect.
Against Miss Elizabeth too. The opposite of Miss Elizabeth. Here's Miss Elizabeth, America's little girl.
I mean, even though it had already been done with Sherry and Liz, but Luna would have been perfect with Jake because of the fact, Luna would have been the fear factor, where Jake would have kind of been, like the talk softly, silent, You know what I'm saying? And I just think that the chemistry would have been there.
Yeah.
You know, even Luna would have been good with even Bray Wyatt.
Right. Or she would have been good with you and someone like Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
Because he was so horrible on the stick. But she could have made that, if they wanted to keep him as the bad guy against Hogan, she could have been out there to do the spiel.
Oh yeah,
but,
even her, I could have even seen her, believe it or not. Like as weird as it sounds, I mean, it would again, it would made for an odd pairing, but them two would have gelled, I think, really well. It hit her and Randy Savage,
right?
Her and the Macho
Man. Yeah,
because
Sherry Martel tried to channel Luna, I think, when she was trying to be that way.
I mean, I can see
she
her
trying to do a scary Sherry. She was trying to be Macho. She was trying to be Luna.
Yeah,
I really think that. I really believe that she was trying to be Luna. And some of these other gals have tried to do that. Daphne, I think, was trying to be a little bit like Luna, a little bit out there. Let me be not your stereotypical gal. You know what I mean? Because
Daphne was kind of like.
But you know what I mean about how she's okay. I gotta be more like one of the boys and one of the girls. One of those things.
Yeah.
But like we said, Luna Vachon. The question was, and watch the episode and let us know what you think. Was she Pillman before Pillman? Was she the Lunatic Fringe before Lunatic Fringe?
And then we also gotta mention that she was married to David Heath.
Yeah, and that whole thing too. That's what I'm saying. David Heath, Gangrel, no idiot. If she was this off all the time, he would just dated her a few times, had some laughs. But if she was that off, he wouldn't have married. I think he saw the other side of her. He saw her son kept saying, "Well, that's my mom. That's my mom." I think he saw Trudy. He saw Gertrude. He met her.
Right.
And he knew where that line was.
Well, I think Gangrel, I think again, we don't know because we've never met her, we didn't see it. But right. He saw the opposite side of who she really was.
Yeah, he saw the true cameras are off. We're in the hotel or apartment or house by ourselves. It's like rock stars. There you go.
But again, it goes back. Her lifestyle was based off of how she was brought up.
Right.
You
are outside the house. You are period.
When you were on the road back in the day, like people like Luna. I was even watching the other day, and I'm just throwing this in there because this has to do with back in that era. I was watching a shoot interview with Sam Houston.
Yes.
A recent shoot interview. And he was talking about...
Wait. Explain the word shoot.
Shoot is when you're telling the facts. You're telling that it's real.
Just so everybody knows what's going on when you guys shoot.
He's sitting down, he's telling you the facts of what really happened when he was with different people and, the things that actually did happen and it wasn't quote and unquote staged.
Yeah.
But he was talking about, just the way he was brought up in the business and just the way he came in and the things that he had to do and the things that he saw, like guys sitting around doing coke.
Yeah. And,
he's like, I was in the locker room. I was still young. I hadn't quite broken into business. And I'm sitting there watching, he goes, I grew up with this guy. He's like, I grew up, my dad was around the Junkyard Dog, Sylvester Ritter for people, the JYD for people who don't know who that is. But he's like, I'm sitting in the back, and he goes, I'm kind of like the, I don't like using this word, but for better terms, the stooge.
Right.
Basically that means like he goes and gets whatever people need where, but he's watching them, guys in the back, rolling coke and cigarette rolls and smoking it and
that was Luna,
drinking and,
But, and right now, and I'm not blaming anybody, I was going, oh, that's all the wrestlers. Ask any football player from the 70s and 80s. I've heard Mike Golick when Mike and Mike were on ESPN for radio all the time. He goes, after a game, there'd be a bowl of M&M's back there. It was all pain pills, everything pills. So all athletes did it. It wasn't just wrestlers and rock stars that did cocaine and drugs, people.
Well, she was in ECW. Yeah. You want to talk about the locker room? Okay, let's talk ECW. But she, people, like, you hear people about, he's no longer with us again. He just recently passed away. But, like, New Jack, you hear guys talking about, they're sitting in the back, sitting there sucking down a half a bottle of whiskey, smoking a blunt, and then bell time, my music, and they run out, they do their thing, and then they come back and they do the same thing, and then they leave, go get dinner, and then they go to the hotel, and they basically recycle it. it's a recycling process.
It was the babyface, the fan favorites did it too.
Oh yeah.
Don't get me started on the Von Erichs.
The Von Erich
would show up, and he'd be lacing his boots on the way to the ring. So back in
the day, the cocaine was the pain pills of that era. That was what they turned to when they needed to take an itch off.
Well, you had to wrestle. You were the last match, say, or even now you had to wait because you were riding with that guy. So you're leaving at 10 o'clock at night. You got to drive 300 miles. You got to drive 10 o'clock at night. You're leaving Minneapolis. You're going to Duluth.
And they said...
And you got to be at Duluth the next morning.
Right.
300 miles or so. So you got to stay up to drive because you're driving yourself in your rental car, if you can get a rental car. you can get to the hotel. You got to sneak into the hotel with no one bothering you.
Yep.
Arn Anderson, another guy told those stories. Try to go find a place to get a quick workout in real quick, stay in shape. You can't just eat, sleep, and drink and not work out to keep these bodies.
And they said like she'd leave the show, she'd go back to the hotel. Gang Girl said, he come walking in, hey, hon, whatever, and she'd be sitting there, snorting up some cocaine.
Yep.
And she had 2 or 3 bottles of
whatever
it was that she was drinking,
whatever she bought that day,
and that was her lifestyle back in the day. Wrestlers didn't do the pain. There wasn't really pain pills. The pain pill was cocaine.
Right. Cocaine was easier to get than a handful of aspirin.
Just like,
even aspirin or Tylenol.
Right.
It's easier to get cocaine. And
just like steroids. Like, steroid now, you can't even get your hands on. Back in the 70s and stuff. You could walk, guys would say, you could walk in, doctor, hey doc, I need 3 prescriptions for, and they write them out like you were writing a permission slip to go on a field trip.
Right. So that's that. Like I said, Luna, and also that generation really. We'll get into another thing about the horror stories of the girls that Fabulous Moolah trained. Moolah did train a lot of great girls, but they were more than just.
I think Luna was she was, when it came to the women's division within that time period, from like the time she came in to the time that she was in WWF on her last run, she was the respect factor.
Right.
She was the one. You weren't going to walk into they always say like the Undertaker was the ring general for the boys. Luna was that respect factor. Luna and Jacqueline were 2 women that you were not going to walk up to in the locker room and say, I'm going to do A, B, and C. And you're not going to walk in and call the shots on them.
Yeah.
And if they, a prime example, like with Sable, let's put it out there. There's no doubt. There's no covering up. Luna did not think she deserved to be where she was at, and quite honestly, she didn't. How did Sable get into WWF? Let's put it on. Let's put it out there. It was Mark Marrow.
Let's put all stuff there too. There's 2 Playboy magazines out there that show you why she was in there too.
Well, yeah, she was. That was done while she was there. Yeah. But as far as her in the business per se,
Mark Marrow. Yeah,
Mark Marrow. If it wasn't for Mark Marrow and them needing a valet for Mark Marrow, well, let me rephrase that. She was going to be Mark Marrow's valet, and then they wanted to use her with Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Right.
But
Mark said no.
But Marrow, let's face it. If it wasn't for Marrow, Sable would have never got into the business. She would have never probably married Lesnar.
Right.
She didn't deserve what she got.
No.
Now, like, to me, here's a dream match that I would have loved to see, Andy.
Yep.
Luna Vachon against Chyna.
Yes.
When Chyna was in her prime.
Yep.
Before all the Playboy.
Yep. All
the drugs. Luna versus Chyna.
Yeah, because Chyna's matches against Jericho and the guys, those were just crap matches too. I don't even get started on that. But that's what we got for today for page 2. We'll get more into this with Ink another time. Check out Dark Side of the Ring. Great behind the scenes stuff on wrestling right there. I think you'd really enjoy it.
And don't forget, for you fans that I don't know if you guys have called it or not, but just a little update. Don't forget that tonight is Rampage.
Yep.
And tomorrow night is Dynamite. It'll be like that for a while because of the NHL hockey playoffs.
We've covered that on the regular show.
But they're not going to pull a WWE where, hockey's on and we're not going to show it.
Yeah.
And get ready next month. well, this is how we'll finish it out. I'll just leave you with this. Next year, TBS,
TBS
AEW,
they're gonna start
big things are coming.
Their women's tournament starts coming up. Putting that off. So yeah, we got
big things are coming.
You're going to the show here for AEW in the city.
I am, and I am truly super excited for it. First time for AEW being in Minneapolis, so that's a plus. But never been to an AEW show yet, so this is my first. But yeah, I'm super excited. And you know what, worker, non-worker, you know what, it's great to be able to be a fan again.
Right.
It's great to be able to watch good old-fashioned wrestling, sit down, enjoy yourself, have yourself a beer, whatever it is you're drinking, and just, be able to enjoy the program.
Right. So like I said, we got this show here, page 2, you see once in a while, our regular show on weekends. Dan does a whole thing on midweek for baseball, and I don't know what he's going to do for baseball season now. One more wrestling note to wrap up here. Prayers and thoughts out for Jim Hacksaw Duggan, who's gone to the hospital, so I've reading that.
What did he have done?
Just for some procedures. I haven't heard more yet today. Jim Duggan, also Jim Ross, skin cancer announced today.
Really? Did not hear that.
I read that on the way in. Oh, that's what I was going to tell you. But that's what we got. So follow that stuff. I got all the stories on our Facebook page. You'll see all that there. Again, regular show on weekends for sports and songs. This show midweek roughly either here on Instagram or on Anchor or Spotify or catch your stuff. Dan, his show is on YouTube. So there we go. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Inc.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
All right.